The following content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseware continue to offer high-quality educational resources for free. To make a donation or view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses, visit MIT OpenCourseware at ocw.mit.edu.
Good morning, Claudio.
Good morning, Earl. Thank you again for coming. It's always a pleasure to show you the factory to you. So before, the main purpose of that, I'll show you the value stream, the factory, the product flow. But before that, let me, I'm going to give you a little preview of who we are,
what
wonderful.
we do. Yeah, well, everybody knows New Balance, but tell us about your journey to
Specifically
Lean.
about the Lawrence factory. The factory specifically is divided into, you have, standing here, you got to your left side, the portion that we call the cut-through stitch. This is the made in America shoes that we cut from scratch and we pack here. And to your right, my right side, is what we call the sourced upper world. We get the sole and the upper from Asia, and we just put it together.
Now, are you the only shoe company that actually manufactures shoes in the U.S.?
I understand it is.
That's what's behind me here.
That's, and that's where our competitive advantage. Great, turnaround shoes in 2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days?
Yeah, we can get it in the customer's hand.
Okay, and we'll see how you do that when we go through the value stream.
Absolutely, I'll show that. So some statistics, we pack 5,200 pair a day and ship 5,200 pair a day. We are 220 associates. Which I'm going to show you when we go through operation, the value stream, which is a group operations put in strategically in a cell or U shape to make a product. There's some history behind it, and it's very interesting. What you see here is a product of 3.5, 4 years of lean transformation. 3.5 years ago, we decided to work with the Toyota production company to learn about the Toyota production system, which is lean is another name for it. Not so long, 4 years ago, it used to take us 8 days to make a pair of shoes. 8 days.
From start to finish.
From start to finish.
I mean, you weren't working on that shoe the whole time, but start to finish was
Well, that's a good question, because what we call the value added work, which was only 23 minutes. So the shoe was floating in the factory for 8 days with only associates touching the shoe, adding value to the shoe for 23 minutes. When the transformation, after 3.5 years, we went from 8 days to, right now it takes us between 2 and 3 hours in a value stream to produce a pair of shoes. Okay. So that's a 98% reduction.
And still about 23 minutes of value added time?
Yes, absolutely. So
there's actually still some room for, potentially for improvement.
Once you start lean, it becomes part of your DNA, you never stop. Okay. You'll see supervisors and flow coordinators, which are our team leaders, always with a watch, looking at taking cycle time, see there is opportunity to improve. So there are other statistics. We used to be in 2 floors. Right now we are in 1. We empty like a quarter, I think it's like close to 2,500 square feet of floor. The beginning of a value stream, that in those days were not called value stream, was like straight lines. Yep. Used to be in the first floor, the beginning, and the end on the second floor. Not too much communication.
So nobody can see the whole value stream.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll show you later is from a management point of view, the ability to have a value stream where the beginning and the end meet is extremely powerful. So square footage, I think, is close to 30% reduction. Also, working process, like I said, 98%. So this is incredible. So how do we do that? Part of lean, there are 2 basic concepts. Takt time, which is flow, that based on our capacity of the value stream and availability is a takt time of 22.5 seconds, which means that it's a frequency. Takt time is a frequency of delivery. So at the end of the line, you will see a shoe leaving every 22 and
Or
a
a
half
pair of
seconds.
shoes every 45.
Absolutely. So that's the concept of the takt time and flow. And the other concept is of waste. We become, actually we have a course we call waste detectives. We put our associates to identify waste. So what is a waste? In the
So
lean world?
is every associate a waste detective?
Yes, that's where they are. Everyone here becomes a waste detective. So I have a poster very interesting that I like to use for tours and also for educational purposes, where in the lean world they are like the deadly wastes. And they are, I'll go through overproduction. We produce ahead, waiting. And it's very interesting. There are some interesting pictures with associates participating in them, of the examples. Transportation, over processing.
So just on the waiting, for example, 8 days for 23 minutes of value added, there was a lot of waiting going on.
Lot of, yes, and it used to be normal. Now it's...
In transportation, you had 2 floors before?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Over processing, this is interesting ways that people don't sometimes have to understand. In this particular case, this shoe, it needs a row of stitching at the bottom. Now they put 2. People may think, well, 2 is better than 1. No, it's not. The shoe needs 1.
Okay.
But sometimes we tend to add 2, like maybe 3 coats of paint when 2 was enough.
Oh,
so we look into that.
Yeah.
Excess inventory,
Yep.
waste. I mean, interesting assets seems to be in the balance sheet.
And
Seems to be an asset, but it's not.
We'll see this as soon as we start the value stream walk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the first part, the cutting department. Unnecessary motion. Safety has a lot to do with here. Here you have an associate placing a shoe and overstretching. Very different from getting closest to associate. And defects. And we added an A, which is unused associate creativity.
Wonderful.
It's wonderful. So what we've all been training here is that as we walk the floor, we do analysis, we are trying to identify this waste. If we see somebody overstretching, it's motion. If we see somebody waiting. So whenever we see this waste, we put together a continuous improvement activity called the Kaizen activity. So the whole goal is reduce waste, improve flow. Reduce waste, improve flow.
I want to see your value stream. Can we get started?
Let's start it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
wonderful.
This is the beginning of the value stream.
So this is the front end of your value stream here?
This is the front end of the value stream.
And you don't call this a department, you call it a value stream.
The value stream, and the definition is, value stream is a series of operations put in sequence, we call it a cell, to make a particular product.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be 1 product, it can be 2 products, 3 products, but there is some similar operations, and then you can connect them.
Okay. Now, in a little bit bigger sense, your value stream goes all the way back to your suppliers and eventually out to your stores and so on. But we're looking just at the value stream.
Absolutely.
Starting with what's coming from the suppliers, and maybe at the end we'll see what's going out to your stores.
Correct, and as the concept of value stream is used within a cell in manufacturing, the concept is also true for the whole corporation, where let's say, a purchasing department will be a department part of the whole corporation value stream.
Right.
So you're correct.
Yeah.
So what you see here is the cutting. That's the first operation, and basically materials are coming from our suppliers. They come in rolls. They go to the consolidation center and then pull based on the demand, the production schedule.
So this value stream pulls based on its demand.
Exactly. And the materials are layered, and we build what we call a web.
Okay.
Basically, a web is a series of...
Stapled right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How much is given to the cutter is based, so we have a computer system that based on the schedule, the number of pairs, the size, and the width, we'll tell how many pairs we need, and then how much, square footage to give to the cutter. Basically,
and how frequently do you make that calculation?
Well, each work order, like daily.
Daily.
And right now, with delivering the materials, although it's daily calculation, we deliver 4 to 5 hours worth of material.
So that's kind of like a just in time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the cutter will pick up what's called a die, which is has the shape of the part.
Okay.
We have a hydraulic machine and place the die on the material. the placement of the dies is called nesting.
Nesting, okay.
And it's
So
much
trying
more
to minimize waste, I guess.
Exactly, it's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
Cutters may take from 3 months to 6 months to get good at it. Not only to understand where the die goes, but also make it with speed. Because talk about speed. Let me talk a bit key concept, which is the concept of tag time.
Okay.
In the lean world, the goal is to flow and to reduce waste. Flow and to reduce waste. Based on the demand and this value stream, which is 50 cases a day, a case being 12 pair, and the available time per day.
600 pair a day that this value stream
For
puts
this
out?
value stream specifically, and 7.5 hours in a shift. The frequency of output is 22.5 seconds per shoe. That frequency is called tag time.
Okay.
Tag time. Now, although I just mentioned that the frequency is 22.5 seconds per shoe, at this stage, because of the characteristics of the operation, we are not flowing one shoe at a time. We are still in a batch world.
Okay. But a small batch.
Small batches. In the past, as I said before, when our lead time was 8 days, in an equivalent value stream, we will have close to 400 cases of whip.
Okay.
Now, when a lead time of 3 hours, our working process is 20-25 cases.
Okay.
That's a reduction of 98%.
So I see a little green thing on the floor that the visual control says cutting whip, 7 cases maximum.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's all the space you got.
So the cutters will cut the individual parts based on the material, and they will be placing the parts on the bins.
Okay.
When they finish the hour, so here the unit of flow, you can call it an hour. It could be between 6 and 7 cases, depending on the style.
Okay. So while we're here, I see a broom hanging up there. So I want to just ask you about 5S.
5S, it's very typical. 5S is a system that organization. You know, it's 5S stands for sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And it's much more than just cleaning. Once you understand the 5S, there are ergonomics in place, and there is a very key location of parts. This is the first system we implemented like 5 years ago.
I was going to ask you, it's hard for me almost to imagine a place where it wouldn't naturally be 5S, but you had to start with 5S.
You start with the 5S because one of the mistakes is thinking that 5S is just a cleaning. So everybody understands cleaning, and it's so much to clean, and when you start a new process, you can get so many gains by just cleaning. It looks good. There's much more to it, but the broom in that place with the label says broom, that's been.
It becomes part of your organizing yourself.
Absolutely, and it goes deeper. I think that 5S is good, actually a reflection of leadership. If you cannot get an organized workplace and clean, your chances of flowing product and meeting that tag time are very slim. So it has to do with the discipline. It goes much deeper than that, than just the cleaning.
Okay.
So this is the cutting department, batch 7 cases. Now we're going to walk to the next department. It's called the pre-fit department, part of the value
So
stream.
this is like the second part of the value stream.
It's a second thing in the value
We got
stream.
the cutting, now we're going to do stitching.
Exactly. The pre-fit is a shoe making technique. Many years ago, when we didn't have computers, the way a shoe was stitched is used to be fitted. 2 parts coming together, and the very skillful stitchers who put it together. But before be able to pre-fit and stitch it, you need to be fitted. Used to be pre-fitted, which is you do marking, you do embroidery, you do other things before you put the shoe together.
Yep.
That's where the name coming from, pre-fit. So we do embroidery.
Okay.
We put the logos.
This is where the NB comes on.
is our main USA logo is there. And then you will see a series of operations, miscellaneous operations that are required to make a shoe. For example, reinforcement on the tip. I talk about embroidery. Some cells take embroidery, others do not. Here we have a machine called RF radio frequency machine. It's not being operated right now, but as an example, this is a part. It will make this decor. It's a nice feature. This is what this machine is going to do. Again, some cells have it, some cells do not. And if we go through the team, you'll see associates making other miscellaneous operations to the part, to the shoe.
So the flow of material starts over there, goes to the
So we'll go cutting, refit,
Yeah.
we'll go to the computer stitching, and we'll finish up stitching, and then eventually the assembly where they put the sole on.
So if things are getting a little out of sequence timing-wise, could someone from here go over and help the pre-fit people?
Well, this is a very good point. When we change from the batch and queue world to the lean world, we change the management system. In the past, you have associates and supervisors, nobody in the middle. In order to support the attack time of 22.5 seconds and maintain that flow, now we change the system where we have a supervisor, we have team leaders, and then the associates.
Okay.
So team leaders fill in if there is a disruption of any kind, a bathroom break, to a phone call, to a quality issue, they will jump in to maintain the flow.
team leader will.
Absolutely.
So the team leader can do everything.
Absolutely, yes. So we still, in this team, in the pre-fit, we have batch. The parts are pre-fitted, put a reinforcement to the toe, you make a little decal, you put those associates there and make a little hole on the part. They're putting back on those bins that we talked before and brought filling batch to this department. It's called computer stitching.
Computer stitching.
So what I'm going to show you right now are stitching machines, but they have a computer and cameras. And the way it works, you see an associate picking these kind of parts, put in what's called a pallet. These little holes is to put on pins, and the pallet will be fed into this machine, and you have lights taking pictures, and a computer, and taking pictures 3 frames per second. So the cameras tell the computer this is the edge, and the computer tells the sewing machine where to put the stitch. Okay. At this computer stitching department is when we transition from the batch to the flow, and that's what I'm going to show you now.
Okay, great.
This associate here, I forgot to mention, we talk about the different management system. Remember, tag time, flow, supervisor, team leader to help, but also we want associates to be on the line producing the shoes at that tag time. So another level is called the point of views.
Okay.
Associate. The goal of point of views is to bring the parts to the operators actually adding value to the shoe.
So this lady's a point of use associate.
It's called a point of views associate.
She looks pretty busy too.
Very busy. They have to distribute, in a case every 9 minutes, and they have a flow from this computer stitching to the next department and come back and flow. Everything is about flow.
So you want to keep this person, want to have everything she needs to do what she needs to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This person in the past, in the batch world, this person will leave the machine, will go pick up the parts, come back. A lot of variability in the system.
Yeah.
And reduction of waste is to reduce variability at the same time.
They must have to work very closely together.
Yes, absolutely. So here you have the computer stitching machine.
Okay.
These are the parts that came from the cutting. And the associate puts the parts on this pallet. It's fed into the machine.
Goes back in the machine.
You got the cameras taking pictures.
And now it's stitching.
And then the sewing machines stitching where the computer is telling to stitch. The pallet comes up. Here we got the parts.
Okay.
Now, why only 3 parts? Is because under the takt time of 22.5 seconds, that's all it fits in this machine.
Okay.
So we take all the time that is required to stitch a shoe, we divide it by 22.5 seconds, and that tells us how many associates we need to put to flow.
Now, when you switched to the tack time approach, did you have to redesign some of these machines to?
Completely.
Okay.
In the past,
the old machines didn't fit the tack time.
I'm sorry, the machines are okay. We have to change the thinking of the designing of the pallets.
Okay.
In the past, in the batch and Q world, we were very proud when we could put as many layers as possible to save machinery.
Okay.
The goal was a machine efficiency.
Great.
Because you get rewarded in the batch world for machine efficiency. Right now, the goal is into efficiency in associated utilization.
Okay.
So what we did is now we don't pack as many layers as we can. We only put enough layers to maintain flow. The machine is the same, but the design of the pallet and the number of parts has changed radically.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
And did the associates participate in that redesign?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. And we talk about the team leaders. That's one of the major changes that, you know, we read in the books about our associates as best assets. And so I think we're walking, we're talking about, we also, we're doing great things here where associates have a great part, in the problem-solving activity, in the design. Supervisors and team leaders consult them all the time. That's what makes a big difference. But before we talk about batch, now you see single piece flow. You have flow.
Yep. So we got a cell here.
You have a cell, exactly.
I mean, this is a very good graphical realization of a cell. You can see it all connected together.
It's a good point. This is a good example of flowing.
Yeah.
Of flowing. And we ask them not to have more than 2 pairs.
It says right there, 2 pairs only. Huh?
2 pairs only.
Yep. Yep. And you got some visual work instructions here?
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's part of the standardized work where we define the standardized whip. And visual management is a big part of it. And if we have more, if I see 3 pairs, there's a problem, this associate problem is having problem. Okay. The flow coordinator, we call the flow coordinator the team leaders. We call them flow coordinators.
Oh, the flow coordinator.
Yeah, it's the name we come up with.
That's what's better than team leader.
Yes. Because the goal is to maintain the flow in a way.
Well, the title flow coordinator means team leader focuses on them, flow coordinator focuses on what they're doing.
Exactly, exactly. So visually, if you see 3 pair, the flow coordinator will come and say, something is not right. So visually, it's very powerful.
So, Claudio, I see some little red dots over that says red color labels. What are those for?
It could be that these machines sometimes are very sensitive to the shape of the part, because you take a picture and the part is sort of warped, it faults the machine. So in shoemaking technology, you can have a stage runoff. So the associate will put a little red dot, and as it goes by, the flow coordinator will notice, fix it quickly, and put it back into the line.
Now, is that something that came out of an employee suggestion?
Probably, yeah, and they like to have that, and they identify themselves, at least the defect is there, but they take ownership. That's a big thing that changed. In the past, they were just trying to, we have inspectors at the line putting the dots. Now, defects happen, but now they have ownership, and I'm very proud. We created an environment that it's okay to show the mistakes, and it's not a problem.
And they're happy with that.
Oh, not a problem.
Great.
And very interestingly, when we changed from the batch to the lean, standards are very important. Standardized work, which is the definition, sort of the best flow of product considering cost, quality, and economics. And some people thought, well, if I have to do always the same, management was concerned that associates would feel like robots. And feedback that we got after a few months of lean implementation is that they love to know what they have to do. So management and even human resources concept that they would feel like robots was not correct. And what we're trying to teach them is that it's sort of a paradox, because standardized work tells you always have to do the same thing, but as you do always the same thing, you have a foundation for problem solving, or for continuous improvement. So standardized work is a continuous improvement tool. It depends how you look at things. So through that repetition, they will recommend changes.
That's a really interesting approach, because that makes standardized work be something where you're always trying to improve it, compared to now we can forget about it.
Right, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. Sometimes we go crazy, it never stops. Once you get those brain rewired for continuous improvement, it never stops. Yeah, the goal of management is really change radically. Managers become more of teachers and coaches. Coaches always challenge their thinking. Always production managers call, they always have to have like gentle tension. You will not, in my experience of what I read, you will not introduce lean with that tension. It's a, it's like I read somewhere else. This is like a pressure cooker. It's always pressure to just release the pressure.
Very good analogy.
Okay.
Great. Well, maybe we should move on.
Yes. So here you got the case ready for the next department.
Okay.
And the case will be sent to the stitching department. So I think we should go around and I'll show you from the beginning.
Okay. Very good.
We're gonna go around.
Okay. Good. Boy, a lot of visual control here.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that before we talk about the stitching itself.
Okay.
Tag time flow. Flow coordinators are required to keep detail of, you have detail here of the plan versus actual if there are any deviations.
Okay.
This is the production board for the last team that we haven't talked yet. But if there is a negative, they have to put a reason. In this case, was waiting for the closing. Closing happens to be.
This is today's.
This is today.
So
yes.
I have 5 after 8. This is 7, 8 o'clock. So immediately this is filled in.
Yes.
Because we're now on this shift here.
Right. So we'll see. And we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good observation. So from a management, for supervisors, managers, you come here and you know we're waiting for closing. So the first question I will have, okay, what happened in the closing, in the stitching? You have a board here that then the flow coordinator says machine number 7 was down for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Just big picture detail. They have on their desk, they have a more detailed log that will tell them what happened with that particular machine. But you see how they are connected.
Yeah. Very good.
And it's part of the supervisor and management to make sure that they make sense. They make sense.
Morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Good.
You see, they broke the thread. That's why
the thread broke.
The thread broke.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about. She knows about
I
it.
forget somebody.
It's okay.
Is she the flow coordinator?
She's a supervisor. 25 years in the company.
Okay.
What an asset.
That's my team.
Yeah, so this is her team. I saw you, you're way up there.
So like we were talking before, we talk about the generation, problem solving, involvement. And we have a very simple way to appreciate the ideas of our associates. To talk about interaction supervisor associates, I will introduce to Rosemary Munoz. She's our supervisor.
Buenos dias.
Buenos días, ¿cómo estás?
In the Y value stream. She's been with the company 25 years.
Wow.
So she's seen a lot from the batch and queue world to the
It's okay.
batch and queue world to the lean world. So any questions you want to ask her? It's
Yeah, Rosemary, it's really critical in lean transformation to lean. The people are really, to me, the key part, critical part. And you're a frontline supervisor, and you have a value stream. I guess this is a kind of a picture of your value stream here.
Yeah.
Yours is the gold value stream. So, as supervisor, what are some of the things that you do when you work with your value stream team?
The most important is to work, with associates. And because, lean is 90% associate, and 10%, the rest, material, or maybe supervisor. The most important was, to introduce lean system, and they understand and work with them, That's the most important thing, that we can do to get that result.
Now, Claudia was telling me that one of the ways you do this is you get suggestions from them. You engage them with suggestions. So, like Maria here, she's contributed some kinds of suggestions. And what happens to those suggestions when she contributes?
The suggestion they're giving, that we check if we try to implement almost all the idea that they have to. When they giving some idea, we try to implement. We work with them. That way they feel more, more, how how I can say,
More involved?
more involved,
More
you
involved?
know,
Yeah.
in help, you know, the team.
Yeah.
How do you help them with the idea? How do you help them think to it? Do they come up with the idea
No,
by themselves?
they come up with idea by themselves. When they don't have no idea, I go with them, you know, and say, you know, for example, what you think? You don't have no idea how you can get any idea. Sometimes they say, oh, maybe I don't have too many time to think and something like that. But I told them, what do you think if I put, you know, for example, the bobbin here close to you?
Yeah.
You can save, you know, 1 second. I said, that come in. That's
Yeah.
fine already. We can try. You know, they only try anything, you know, that I can
Yeah.
tell them to do.
Yeah. So what, as a supervisor, what's the biggest challenge you have in this job? You got 25 people. That's a lot right there. It's just
Work together.
Work together.
And teamwork. That's the most important. You know, when we work like team, you can get anything you want, you know, if you work.
Well, super. Well, let's go back in the factory.
All
You
right.
got a lot of
Thank
work
you.
to do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this was called stitching. Before the computer stitching, the upper was in the flat form.
Yeah.
Here is the first time the upper takes a 3D form.
Okay.
So it's a cell, and basically it will follow, something stop here, trying
Okay.
to understand. It will follow this view
Yep.
to feed to what we call the assembly department,
Okay.
what is this, the sole.
Okay.
Still in the stitching department, you still have flow, continuous flow. If you looked between the stations, two uppers, two uppers, two uppers, that associate just noted he did not put another shoe on that tray until one was removed.
Kanban. Okay.
Exactly.
Flow, yeah.
So they're pulling.
Pulling, yeah.
Very
Okay.
critical. That discipline is very, very important. You don't want that overproduction.
You're right. There are two there.
And you saw how
Okay,
they were
I just
stopped.
saw the switch.
Yeah,
Yep.
and they were stopped.
As soon as she pulled one off, he put one there. Yeah.
It takes months and years to get that, but they understand. They understand that the shoes are not going anywhere if they overproduce.
You know, it looks like a symphony. Everybody's playing together.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's a tug. It's like a rhythm.
Yeah.
The rhythm. The shoe circulates to the department. They stop. That's why they don't have a chute here. The associate will put and basically the department is, there are two basic operations. It's called the lasting, where this is called the last.
The last. Okay.
You have a last, this is a style, and you have a last per a foot. Foots are very different.
Yeah. Those are
It
10 and a
happens
half
to be
D.
10.5. The width is
Yeah.
D, called David. No balance that's, specializes in width. So this particular shoe goes from B, very narrow, to 6E, very wide. And each foot requires a different last.
So so how do we know when shoes are going through this cell that are they making it for a particular size last?
There is a document that is printed every day and distributed to all the supervisors per value stream, that they know exactly the sequence.
Okay.
So he knows very well, the flow coordinators in this team knows very well what's coming.
But that's done on a daily basis. So you're really responding almost a daily basis to the pull of in customer.
Right, yeah, it's a daily, daily. We know, sometimes are weekly, sometimes are daily, but we know exactly, it gets, at the beginning of the day or the afternoon before, it gets put in this document.
And is that based on the orders that are coming in for shoes?
Yeah, it depends on the work order. Some shoes go direct to customers, some orders go to the warehouse. It depends on where they are, who they are for. It can be a weekly work order or a daily work order. Regardless of that, this document is daily, and it gets distributed again to the supervisor, flow coordinators, and setup people. Setup people, the ones that bring the work. So it's like, it's no question. So in this case of the last, the setup person will have this document. So no need to talk. No need to talk. Every single transaction is very clear. Who's responsible? What needs to be done? So
This must give you a competitive edge over your competitors whose shoes are being made in another country and the market is here, and there's a time lag between those two.
this is one. Yes, it is. Like, we're working right now with our lead time of 3 days. is to try to help the retailers to minimize the inventory. So if Fridays, Saturdays, and Sunday are big days, on Monday they place an order, 3 days later we can deliver back to them. So
And this lady is doing it right now. I mean, she's
absolutely.
real-time response. Okay, cool.
This should be in a customer in 3 or 4 days, and that makes a big deal. Basically, in this department, this associate, the shoe is put into what's called a conditioner, just get some steam to soften up a little bit.
Okay.
So when he removes a last, puts on the pin and put the shoe on, it's flexible enough to fill it, to fit. The shoe gets cemented in the bottom.
Okay.
The sole is delivered from behind. They're associated with that yellow machinery there. That basically what it does, it activates. Maybe I'll show you a little more closely here. So the shoe is cemented.
Okay.
It's put in this big dryer
Okay.
to dry. The sole underneath is come from behind.
Okay.
The right sole for the right upper. The cement gets a little heat in that
oven?
called activator oven. Then the associate will get the upper and the sole activated.
Yep.
They'll stick it together, put in this big press where the shoe stays for 2 minutes to ensure bonding,
Okay.
and then go to our table where the packing associates will do some basic inspection. We'll remove any cement. We'll apply the laces, any tags, advertisement, some tissue inside the shoe to keep the shape inside the box.
Yep.
Get packed,
And that's it.
and that's it.
Okay, so Claudio, this now goes to your customer, and if I go to a New Balance outlet or a shoe store, I can buy
You'll
this.
see those shoes, absolutely.
Claudio, thanks so much for showing us.
It's been a pleasure, really a pleasure.
And as we're leaving, I kind of want to know, what's the next step of your lean journey?
It's interesting. The answer is more of the same, but what I mean by that, everything is about the thinking. So what we'll do, we will work in more sophisticated problems. We continue sharpening our problem-solving skills, so we will be to resolve more complicated waste problems.